Hey, welcome back to the Hard Truth series. I am so glad you are here. I am retired ifbbpro Jeff Christian, author and former coach as well. Today, I'm going to throw out a scenario for you that I want you to put yourself right smack in the middle of it, because this could be you as an aspiring bodybuilder. Let's say that you have finally made it to the nationals and you are favored to win. You walk in there and you win the open, and now all of a sudden you find yourself winning a $50 trophy, and congratulations, you get a pro card. Awesome, right? Well, now you think, I'm going to set my sights on the New York Pro or one of the other pro shows a year away, because you also have a reality check where you're not quite as big as you thought you were. And if you're going to go in and compete at the New York Pro with those big boys, you better put on some weight. Well, now you have an economic problem too, don't you? So let's talk about economics here. You realize that not only are you not quite big enough, but you don't have any sponsors that are throwing you cash out like you were hoping. And now you also know that you've got to buy a whole lot more drugs to get there and be competitive. Well, that's your dilemma. And that's what we're going to talk about today on The Hard Truth. Let's get into it.
Get strong.
Do you remember when you were in the 8th grade? Oh man, you had risen to the top of middle school and you were finally cool again, right? Then you realized that you were going to high school and you were nothing but a freshman. You see, that's where every guy finds himself pretty much. When he wins his pro card, he realizes that I'm at the bottom of the pro level now. You say, Jeff, where were you? Well, to be quite honest with you, I was a 50-year-old guy who won my pro card, and I knew that I was not going to threaten anybody in the open, but I liked the idea of competing just because I'm an incredibly competitive person. So I knew where I stood, but a lot of guys don't really have that wherewithal to understand that they're not going to be ready in 6 months to compete with the big boys. So they pile on more drugs and pile on more drugs because they're running on the high of winning that thing. And the only issue they have is they only make so much at their job. How are they going to afford all the extra stuff? Well, that's a fair question. And quite honestly, that's what happens most of the time. Because most people think that a guy who gets his pro card is immediately sponsored and has all of this money thrown at him, and that's just not the case. I was fortunate because I did have sponsors and we had people that paid for a lot of our stuff. But we also coached a lot of people all over the country and up in Canada. So we did not have a really hard time with where we were able to get the money from. But that's just not the case for a lot of people. Let's say you are an average guy that works a $100,000 job a year, and that's still pretty good money. And now you have to go and try to compete at the New York Pro without a sponsor. So you plan it a year away, right? So because you gotta get some more size on, and you're thinking if you can get another 30 pounds, maybe you can be competitive. Now, I'm actually telling you what my thought process was, but let's just say that's your scenario. And you're going to go to New York and a year from now, and you're going to compete. So you realize you got to kick your gear up into high gear, and you need to really sit down and decide how much you can allot for that with your bills and still be able to live life, right? And so you have a wife and maybe she makes some money every year and you guys are going to be okay and you guys are going to sacrifice and you're going to go to the New York Pro because it's your dream. Well, you don't realize that at the start of this thing, it's not just drugs you got to pay for. You got to kick up your food too. And now you start having to pay for more time away for flights and hotel and all of that other stuff. So the economics of all of this stuff without sponsorships makes life really, really difficult. Well, you learn very quickly that not only are you at the bottom of the pros, you're a low-level pro, but you also find out there are mid-level pros, and then there are the top echelon guys, the guys that they run together and they know each other. And then there's the middle range guys who place, in the top 10 or the top 15. And then there's guys like me who are at the bottom of the rung because, quite honestly, I'm just too old. You all of a sudden have to figure out how you're going to make all this work. You realize I need another $3,000 a month just to make it happen. Now, that's on top of the money you were already spending in drugs. You've got to kick it up that much higher, right? Because you're an open guy. You're a super heavyweight in the NPC. You're going to be in the open, so you've really got to kick it up. Okay, you've got probably a $4,500 a month drug bill. Man, that's a lot of money in drugs, in food, and all of that stuff. You say, Jeff, is this realistic? Yeah, it's pretty realistic. And I have information from a very good friend of mine who is in the know as far as one top competitor who was at the Arnold, not only of how much he spent every month, but I actually have his shopping list here. Let me give it to you. So monthly, this guy spends $1,100 a month just in gear. Oh, and by the way, hang on a second. These are wholesale prices. So you need to add another 50 to 60% on top of all of this stuff for what anybody else would pay. Anti-estrogens, probably another $200. Growth hormone, another $1,200. Insulin, another $200. Peptides, another $200. SARMs, another $150. And that's just per month. Now, again, $3,000 times another 50 to 60%, do the math. You can find out real quickly that gets very expensive. Now, let me just tell you this. That was for his show, okay? A lot of top pros stay pretty lean, and so when they're in or heading into a show, they don't need as much drugs and stuff as they do during the off season. They just need different types. And so during the off season, when they're really cramming for more size, that's when the bill goes up even more. Yeah, that is a real shopping list. That is an itemized shopping list. And while I promised him I wouldn't reveal who he is and I would not reveal the competitor, I will tell you this. That guy is pretty amazing. Now, here's your problem. Let's say you go and you win at the New York Pro. You go and you win third place. You are so excited. You not only cracked the top 10, you not only cracked the top 5, but you got third place at your first pro show. And let's say that your first pro show, you won $50,000. Awesome. Well, you just had to pay for hotel, and most guys do pay for this. You just had to pay for your airfare, unless somebody somehow has a private jet to fly you. Most guys don't get that. And you just had to pay for all of your prep food and all of that other stuff that you needed for this show. Wow. Third place, you won 50, but you probably spent 50 on the show, your drugs and everything else. Man, you can see that unless you're sponsored, it's going to make life really, really hard. Now, how does a sponsorship work? Some people think that the top guys have a juice daddy. some company or some guy that pays for their juice. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't a pro out there that has a juice daddy somewhere that gives him money or gives him his juice for free. What I am telling you is the average pro doesn't. They don't have people to do that. And even if you're sponsored, that company is not buying your drugs. And let me tell you why. Because when you're a sponsored athlete, you're a 1099 private contractor. So you understand that the company is not giving you money for steroids. They're paying you to represent their company. They can't give you money for steroids or buy your drugs. The reason they can't do it is they're controlled substances. Do they know that you are doing a controlled substance illegally? 100% they do, but that's how they legally get around it. Now, hang on a second. You say, Jeff, I'm going to be a 212 guy. I don't need all the drugs that an open guy gets. Well, interestingly enough, I talked to my friend about that very thing, and he said, man, by the way, just wanted to let you know, I know a 212 guy who takes just as much stuff as an open pro. Literally, he spends more each month than the pro that I just gave you his laundry list for. Just because you are a 212 doesn't mean you're going to take less drugs or spend less money. Now, let me stop right here and say not everybody gets their stuff at a wholesale price. You might be out in Oregon somewhere and you're having to get your stuff however you get it, and it's costing you a whole lot more money than that guy gets his stuff at wholesale prices, which might be the perk because of who he is. So you're having to spend more money per bottle or per tablet of all of your stuff, right? Now, what about classic guys? Well, interestingly, we talked about classic guys too. Oh, and physique guys. You see, you think as you step down in weight or you step down in size that guys take less stuff. Well, actually, just as my friend said, and just as I know from experience, because I know a lot of those guys, that's not the case either. I know a physique guy that was taking more stuff than I ever did. Why? I don't know. Why didn't he get big? Well, obviously, his body didn't respond to it as easily as mine does. Not everybody's body reacts the same way to gear. There are some guys that use less gear than others, and they're in the open. There's guys that are into physique that use more than an open guy, or there's guys that use huge amounts and they're just regular gym guys. I know a guy who is just a regular gym guy that was taking 1,500 milligrams of test a week, and he only weighed about 200 pounds. Never seemed to get any bigger. And I asked him, I'm like, dude, why don't you just back off? You don't need all of that. It's just not working for you. He just wouldn't do it. But he was having all kinds of side effects and having all kinds of problems with his estrogen, but he just wouldn't listen. You got your pro card, you got your statue, you're ready to go, and you realize you've got a $30,000 to $45,000 a year bill for your steroids. And that's not including your food or other incidentals. You see what happens? This is why a lot of people get into situations where they're doing things they probably never thought they would. Women with porn, guys maybe gay for pay, I don't know. Just to make this type of thing happen, they're never going to reach the top. And by the time they're done with all of this, they're morally bankrupt. A lot of people really are. So while I've given you a scenario today that's somewhat comedic, it's really not funny, because this life is going to suck down every ounce of cash you have. It's going to isolates you from friends. When we were competing, we didn't get to go out with friends. We didn't get to do much of anything because we had to be so focused on what we were doing in the bodybuilding world. We didn't do anything else. It's going to lead to family problems. It's going to lead to all kinds of issues. Why do you think a lot of bodybuilders and women competitors are divorced? It's because they can't make relationships work, because the only thing that matters is getting that much money every month so that you can compete and you can somehow make your dream come true. Guys, there are very, very few guys that are going to rise to the top. If you're not one of those, what are you doing? And if you're just an average gym guy that's just wanting to work out, why are you spending all of your resources on drugs? Now, I am not against working out. I love to train still to this day. We go to the gym. I love to train, but it is not my life anymore. And I promise you, as you get deeper into this lifestyle, you will see that not only is this not life, it's anti-life. And it sucks the life right out of you. When I got right with the Lord in 2019, man, everything changed. And I realized that this life sucked down a lot of my resources, a lot of my time, which is the only commodity I can never get back. Now I use that time to try to warn guys and girls, enjoy your health, enjoy fitness, go to the gym, train hard, do all of that. But when you walk out of that gym, find out what life is really meant to be and who God wants you to be. Because in the end, the only thing that matters is your soul. Hey, thanks again for being here. Please, if you will, like and subscribe and tell me what you think. If you think I'm crazy, you think my numbers are off, that's okay. Let me know that. But I can promise you one thing. The numbers I gave you, they're solid and they're real. And if you get into this lifestyle and you think you're going to make it, you better have a lot of cash available because you're going to need it. Talk to you next time.